teacups, what's brewing? Welcome back to the channel. Lots going on. Today we're going to be looking at a deleted live Foodie did called Surprise Beeze. Now guys, I'm taking this in recap form instead of react form. So that means I'm going to be discussing what went on in the live instead of showing you clips and discussing the clips because, oh man. The live apparently went on for about 6 hours. I did not see it live. I was doing crazy things like sleeping and working. What can I say? It's report card week and I gotta get my grades in and we have exams coming up next week. So it's all fun and games in the teacher life that I lead. I do have an archive of this, but it doesn't include the first 2 hours. The lovely Lottie got me this archive. She did say there weren't really many talking points in the first 2 hours, which she was like, oh, I can only do it in 4-hour blocks. And I was like, 4 hours is only a block? Yeah. So I'm taking what I've got, and frankly, I think I can live without the other 2 hours. But once I'd watched through and timestamped, I was like, no, we're not cutting this down. I have precious little free time. And frankly, right now, I'm devoting it to Animal Crossing. If we're doing something fun with the free time, I am so excited about the new update. I realize lots of you are not here for Animal Crossing talk, but very excited. I'm redesigning a ton of my island. I'm saving up my Nook miles because I think all the new stuff is going to need it. So bells and Nook miles, man. It makes me wish I had a Switch instead of a Switch Lite because I'd love to like do a side thing of just streaming it, but unfortunately, it's not an option, and I tend to have really focused interests. So you know how my channel, I've done a couple of Amber videos and I occasionally do a video on my life, but I tend to focus in. And so the focus of this channel is Foodie. That's who I react to. I don't tend to do the other girls. And I'm the same with other interests. So Animal Crossing is the game I'm playing. I'm not playing, I've switched into Stardew Valley for a while and then I went back to Animal Crossing. The Stardew Valley creator has also announced that a new game is in development, which looks pretty cool. So I don't think it's worth buying a Switch when the Switch Lite only gets particular use when that interest returns. Like, it's not worth me owning both, and the second-hand market isn't really a thing here in Saudi so much. So the idea of selling the Switch on, I don't want to be traveling with 2 Switches. That seems like a waste of space. So I'd have to take it home and sell it, and meh. So probably not going to happen, but I am very excited about the update. I'm just saying, they can take my money. I'm going to enjoy the free update. I'm going to buy the DLC. It's going to be amazing. Anyway, not the point. Not the point. Let's get into this mess. Like I said, we're starting about 2 hours in. I've got a few different topics. One is the haters. Hi there. The second, unsurprisingly, is nada, and that relates to a few different portions of this. A little bit on the health update she gave us, a little bit on some of the discussion she had around money, and what else did I have on this list? Problem with my handwriting is that it makes sense at the time, but it doesn't always make sense later. I have handwriting like a doctor's. A little bit on her family, which wasn't mentioned very much, but there was some interesting points. Well, one main point really, and a little bit about how she's talking to her community, which are not new points on the channel, but pretty much encompasses everything she's offered us for the last 6 months, I suppose. So let's get started on the haters. She was mad. I don't know how long she'd been raging at this point, if she was at the beginning of the stream, if it's something that turned the further away she got from snacks and edibles. I don't know. We will talk about her aunt a bit later. Her aunt is sleeping downstairs on the couch, so she's kind of trapped in her room. So let's get started with the haters. It begins with her being pretty mad, begins in my portion, so about 2 hours in, like I said. I don't know how she was before that, and I may have missed some things in the previous lives because I'm finding it difficult to keep up with these days. I really am. So if I'm confused about something that comes up or has come up in previous lives, apologies for it. Feel free to tell me down below. I just might have missed it. Okay. She calls a lot of reactors a lot of names. Yeah, she does. I don't necessarily have a problem with her slinging a bit of mud because I think she gets a lot of crap. I'm not saying the crap she gets is necessarily unjustified, but she gets a lot of crap. So if she's gonna sling some back, I can kind of live with that. And I think all reactors out there reacting give precisely 3 shits between them what she thinks of them. So I think anyone who wants to sit and react can probably take it, yeah? But if you're going to do that, there's certain things you have to accept. One of those things is you can sling mud, you can create drama, you can get more views for it, and you can get more money for it, but in turn, so can the people you're slinging the mud at. So can the people you're insulting. And that's really what kills her. She really hates that other people can also profit off of it and other people can have a platform to speak on it. It's something that's always bothered her. Even before this arc, it's always bothered her. She's got some long-standing animosity with a lot of the reactors she mentions today. But you don't get to sit there with your little halo and say, no, we just shouldn't hurt people, while also throwing insults. Like, do I think you get insulted, and if you get insulted, you get to insult back? Yes. Yes, I do. Go ahead. I'm not stopping you from doing that. I'm not judging you on doing that. I'm very much judging the hypocrisy of you saying that's a terrible thing to do while doing it. Like later in the stream, she says it's so low to go for physical appearance while she's been insulting Yabba and French Fry Girl and Charlie up and down the stream. And I'm just like, excuse me. There doesn't seem to be a huge amount of self-awareness there. This goes on, she calls Yabba trailer park trash. Does Yabba actually live in a trailer, or is she just using the phrase as, like how some people might use white trash? I don't suppose it matters that much, but it does kind of feed into the discussion about Nada's apartment later. In terms of it as an insult, you call somebody trash. Recently, she did a live where she pulled out an entire old KFC dinner from a drawer next to her bed. Like on a plate with knives and forks and half a bottle of ketchup underneath. She lives in literal mounds of trash. Trash and old food that is currently still rotting in garbage bags behind her in this stream because days ago they were cleaning up for animal services. Did animal services end up coming? I missed this at some point in the week. I know at some point she said, no, I got the day wrong, it's the next day. And then it's the next day, and then we didn't seem to hear anything. Did I just miss the answer? Oh, is everything okay? Yeah. She didn't seem to finish taking out that garbage. So I'm guessing they didn't come. But it does also question, downstairs there was a huge pile of boxes that they put by the top of the stairs because they'd amalgamated everything into a new box mountain, presumably because Pete's was going to take it down to the garbage. And now Auntie is sleeping down there, which is something I want to discuss later. So is she just sleeping there with the boxes all piled up? Like box mountain fine? I'd have some questions about that, because if they haven't taken down her trash, I doubt they've taken down that trash. It'll be something to watch out for in the next few lives, I suppose. If it's still there, we'll know that Aunt has slept in it. But if you're living in physical trash, which you have been, and it's not a new circumstance, it's something we've seen you do repeatedly, just because you're doing it in a luxury apartment, what do you mean trailer park trash? You're calling someone trash when you live in a literal garbage heap? Because it's a luxury apartment, you're the queen of trash, it's that much better? Oh, I'm sorry, we should use you by your correct title. What? What are you doing right now? Really? Really? The question of living situations does come up. She gets a lot of backlash for that trailer park trash comment, by the way. Her chat, not having it. Her chat not having a lot. They were kind of calling her on stuff because they were like, hey now, they're all for going after Yabba, but hey now, I come from that part of that country, or I live in a trailer, or I do whatever. Let's be careful. And then Chantal's like trying to pedal it back, like, no, it's a frame of mind. And I'm like, yes. Cheers. Yes, it is. How's the garbage behind you? Are you kidding? But it leads into this conversation, and she refers it back to French Fry Girl and the apartment that she lives in Montreal, and how it looks dingy, I guess. And, just lots of judgment. She'd be like, do you live in a mansion? Let me see your apartment. Go demand a tour. And I'm like, dude, she wasn't talking about me, but I've got an apartment tour on my channel. You want to see my apartment? Go look at my apartment. Do you live in a mansion? I mean, not to flex on you, but in the UK, kind of, yeah, my dad's got a big house. It's one of those things. You know why I'm saying this? Because it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, doesn't make a difference. Doesn't make a difference. The reason it makes a difference in Foodie's life, and this is the thing that she really isn't happy about, and I kind of get it, because to her it does seem a very double standard. So this is something that I understand why she's questioning it, but I think the reason she's questioning it is just because she does have quite black and white thinking, and she does like to oversimplify issues so that she doesn't have to engage with issues. And this, I think, is one of those cases. You'd be like, doesn't matter where people live. Well, you were just shaming Yabba for a trailer a minute ago. It doesn't matter where people live, or it does matter where people live, because you're demanding proof that we live in more affluent places. I'm getting a little bit confused. Could you clarify? But the point is, sorry, I got a lot going. I got a lot of thoughts. The point is, the thing with Nada's apartment, and the reason it's important to the wider conversation, I suppose, is because the implications of Nada's apartment and how Foodie lives in it and how Foodie interacts with it when she's there was part of the much wider story of the drugs, of the new lifestyle, of the fact that she was sleeping on a mattress on the floor, which way back then I was like, well, are you sure they're not filming you? Are you sure? Like, that sounds a setup to hide a camera somewhere. And lo and behold, later he filmed them having sex without her knowledge or consent. She caught him doing it, and he was like, oh no, I'll delete it right away. And she was like, no, I guess it's kind of hot. Did she ever ask or check, more to the point, because it's not like you tell the truth, that he hadn't done it before? Because that would be my first thought. Like, get that off your phone. And also, when did you start doing this? Show me everything. You know, which I don't think is a conversation she's had with him at all. God knows what kind of footage that he's got of her. And he's still got of her. Worse and to the point. So the idea that it did seem to be a cheap apartment in a bad part of town, that it seemed to be very transient in the fact that there didn't seem to be a lot of lived-in use of it. And he might have just moved in, I don't know. She did say it was under renovations, that he was helping with the renovations, but he doesn't seem to have made it a home in any way. And when she says, oh, I spent $200 at the dollar store, and then the haul she had didn't show very much, and then his apartment is full of dollar store stuff, his apartment has a much wider meaning and is connected to a lot more conversations in terms of the money she's spending on him, in terms of the lifestyle she's living in there. And yes, people call it a crack den. It's not complimentary, but it's not necessarily inaccurate. So yeah, you might just have to accept that. If you tell people you did cocaine there, and you tell people that you did meth there, and you tell people all these other things, then yeah, unsurprisingly, people might have some thoughts on the apartment. So there we go. I think part of her knows this, but the thing is, when she gets angry, all she wants is black and white. She wants very simple things that she can throw in people's faces. And that's why she goes down to the physical insults. And that's why she goes down. Why does it matter? Why does it matter? Because Foodie, as much as she appears kind of a caricature online, she's a human being. She has her own strengths, she has her own weaknesses. But something she's not great at doing is articulating her thoughts. And part of that reason is because she doesn't have the emotional control on the rest of herself that she could otherwise have, and maybe we would otherwise expect of an adult. And maybe therapy will help her with this if she's going, if she continues to go, if the therapist starts to challenge her at all. Who knows? It's very early days in the therapy conversation right now. But she can't articulate arguments well, and she doesn't have the patience to be able to go through, like a reactor does, to be able to go through and say, well, look, at this point you said this, and at this point you said this, and here is the proof, but here is my perspective on this. She doesn't have the follow through for that. She gets given very small select pieces of information, or she watches a few seconds, she jumps to a conclusion, or she doesn't follow things up, she gets angry, and she completely loses it. And then in that process also loses the ability to make a good argument. Because a lot of the stuff that we're saying, we're basing on information that she's given us. And she said herself, she doesn't remember what she says when she's in a rage because, you know, why reflect? And very conveniently, she doesn't remember. But that also means if that's true, which, to be honest, I'm not saying it's not untrue, because sometimes people who don't want to deal with it will just block it out. So maybe she does just block it out because she'd rather not deal with it. But that means a lot of the information that then comes out later and makes her look bad, she's like, no, I didn't say that, when actually she did say that. She said again and again in this live, I'm not a liar. I'm like, madam, we've caught you lying multiple times. What do you mean you're not a liar? You're absolutely a liar. I don't lie about that. We had one bad time. Well, you've already admitted before the times we saw online, before paperclips, before escape, you'd already admitted it was like 2 bad times before you got in the car and said, every time you abuse me, implying there were many, every time you do this, I'm going to call you out to the internet. So there were clearly, even in the moment you tell us that you're not lying, we can clearly see a lie. So how do you expect us to believe that? I mean, really? And that's the stuff she doesn't do. When she sits down and says X, Y, and Z, and we say, well, A, B, and C refutes that. She's like, no, I forgot that. I am no longer living that reality. This is my current truth, and therefore everything now exists within a vacuum, and you also need to forget it. And that's not the way the internet works. Speaking of Nader and his apartment, they had a really awkward live stream. I've seen a couple of clips on Twitter of the worst of it, but I hate them together. You guys, I wasn't about to watch the live. I wasn't about to do it. I hate him so much. He is skeevy and I don't want to watch him on screen. But needless to say, as one might expect, the reaction to that live from the audience was not positive, right? And there were a few things on it that seemed pretty problematic. The fact that she was jumping a little when he made sudden movements, the fact that he appeared to be making fun of her, the fact that they had absolutely zero chemistry. Zero chemistry. Like, he had to be paid to kiss her, and when he did, I literally shivered in revulsion. Like, and that's not a result of either of their physicality. It was just, this is not right. No. Like, it was not indicative of a loving couple, put it that way. And there was a really awkward part where Foodie got called out for calling him her boyfriend, and he was like, what, me? And she was like, I don't remember that. And like, oh, another thing you don't remember, how convenient. But in terms of the response, she did say, like, I don't see a problem with the way that he treated me. And essentially, I know him better, and if I don't have a problem with it, you shouldn't have a problem with it. And I get that as an argument, but people in abusive situations, which she has said multiple times she is in, however much she's tried to walk it back, aren't always that aware of how they should be treated, and aren't always as aware of how things look from the outside. Now, Foodie's in a weird situation with that because she seems to be a lot more aware. I think she's saying it defensively rather than genuine confusion. I think she's lying to herself more than she's lying to us, but I think she's lying to us a lot. It comes down to she would rather be with him than not have anyone, even at the cost of being with him. And so she's never gonna see a problem with it. She's never gonna see a problem with it being an STD. Like, they're moving past it. They're gonna work past it. Oh, she did say here, like, oh, I didn't say I didn't believe he cheated or he could have cheated. She still, in her mind, got this from a toilet seat. She still, in her mind, just wants to find any reason that wasn't him cheating on her. But she's come to the point, she's like, okay, I didn't say I didn't believe he cheated, but if he ever does it again, I'm gone. The fuck. The absolute fuck, you are gone. You didn't go when he hit you. You didn't go when he screamed at you enough to cause you a car accident. You didn't go after paper clips when you thought he might break into your house and kill you. You didn't go after you left him at the pharmacy. You didn't go after the STD. You didn't go after he kicked or threw or whatever he did to your cat. And you're not going if he cheats on you again. And he's probably still cheating on you. the fuck do you think you are trying to convince us differently? We're never gonna believe it. And speaking of the word fuck, she makes a point a couple of times here. Oh, I've sworn too much. I'm gonna get demonetized. I'm not gonna keep up the live. And she did end up deleting it. You can be monetized and still say the F word. You have to declare it, but you can. In this stream, she wasn't using drugs and she wasn't using any words harder than the F word. Yeah? Because there are some terms, I've been not demonetized, I've been put on limited ads twice because of her language, because she used the C word. Google is very sensitive to certain things. I've been limited ads once because she showed a joint on screen, which was quite the surprise after so long with the drug talk, but that was the reason they gave me for putting it on limited ads. And I had limited ads twice because she used the C word in separate videos. So that's just, they're sensitive, more sensitive to certain terms, especially when they get really harsh. But you take the last live stream when we were talking about the tweet that Yaba put up on Twitter called what she called Pete's. I used swear words multiple times in that in that react. Get my terms mixed up. And I was still monetized, but I did have to declare it before I put the video up, because the types of ads they choose to run changes depending on the content of the video. It doesn't mean it can't be monetized. It gives them a chance to work with advertisers that are okay with that, as opposed to advertisers that feel their brand would be damaged by it. So I think she had reasons for deleting this stream. I don't think it was anything to do with her language. She does ask, at one point when people are talking about the chemistry or lack of sane, she's like, oh, he's not a public person. He doesn't kiss me a lot. Now I remember, I can't tell you where, I'm sorry, I can't go back and give you this evidence, but I'm sure it exists somewhere where she was like, no, he kisses me outside all the time, as like proof of love at one point. And now she's saying, okay, well, that's not him. He doesn't really. And then she like rolls her eyes and was like, why would he be with me? So he won't kiss me, but and gave a graphic sex act. But the point was he'll have sex with me. And why would he do that? And I was like, money? Money is the answer. That is why he would do that. That is why people have sex with people they don't particularly like when they're getting benefits from it. Money. My God. But apparently that is not something that has crossed her mind. I'm sure it has. I'd be very interested in her withholding monetary support and seeing what happened. But I think she knows as well as we do that you would see like a Roadrunner-esque smoke hole where he used to be if she withheld monetary support. So she's not gonna. Money is something we will talk about. Actually, I was going to talk about it after health, but let's talk about it now. She talks about her taxes. Her taxes that apparently she still hasn't paid. What are you doing? Like, I can't remember when taxes were due in Canada, but I have a feeling it was either June or early July for the late filing. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I do apologize. I know there are better informed people out there. But as far as I understand it, interest accrues daily when you're late paying your taxes. Whether it was June or whether it was July, it is now October. It is now 22nd of October where I am. Like, how much money is currently piling up? And the longer you don't pay it, what if it triggers an investigation into your money? What are you going to do? You think it's difficult to get your paperwork to your accountant on time? Imagine how you're going to feel when your version of the IRS comes calling. Like, that would be an interesting thing. I'd hope you don't go through it, but that would be an interesting thing. You might want to take care of your money matters a little bit better, particularly as she has an accountant. She very ostentatiously went, I didn't pay taxes because I'm lazy, not because she was incapable. I'm like, so you can, but you're not, even though you've got somebody to do it for you. That's not lazy, that's stupid. She then goes on to dogpile on the American healthcare system a little bit, which frankly it deserves. I think one of her members in the chat was saying or had said at some point that they were having to sell their house to pay for treatments or something along those lines. That's the example she gave. I assume it came from her chat, which just sounds appalling when you're trying to deal with having cancer as well. But so to give this example, she then goes, we'd rather pay high taxes and have access. And like, yeah, as someone who comes from a country with socialized medicine, I would agree. But to make a point, Canadians are paying high taxes. You're not paying any because you haven't paid them yet. And that leads back into when she's like trying to prove how great her life is. She's like, yeah, it is in Pete's name, but I pay the rent. You know why? Because I'm a boss bitch. And I'm like, you're a boss bitch who hasn't paid her fucking taxes. Maybe take it down a notch. You access the healthcare enough times. You go to the emergency room, you go to your doctors, you get your medication. And yes, she does have, I think, an additional insurance to help her with the cost of higher medications, higher priced medications. But she accesses those services a lot. She gets a lot of referrals. She has a lot of help. She has teams of doctors, even though she's like, oh, I pay for my own therapy. Well, good, because you don't pay the taxes that pays for the other services, so pay for your own therapy. I mean, at this point, I imagine Nada has given her a lot of other expenses to pay. So when she says she's lazy, but she's not incapable, is she actually capable at this point? Because for the amount of money she supposedly earns, and even if we don't take it, like 12K was the number that was released, but she seemed a little bit surprised at that number. So we could say more of an average of maybe 10K Canadian. And if she pays rent on the apartment for her and Pete's, I think she said that rent was $1,750. She's not paying her taxes, so we're not going to take that out of it. She should have plenty of money left over, even with her medicine costs every month, because she doesn't take her medicine half the month. But when you consider all the drugs that she buys, like all the edibles that she buys, and you consider all the other stuff, and you consider all the food, and you consider all the boxes of things that are currently piled up that she buys in the mail, and then you add into it Nada and his rent and the cost of his entertainment, shall we say, and his gambling and the food costs additional for his channel for all his things, and the $200 she blows at the dollar store for him, and the shopping spree they went on at payday. Think of all of those costs, the phone bills. Suddenly the money she makes isn't stretching as far. And I don't think she's got savings. If she had savings, she wouldn't have been eating no-name chips at the end of the other month. Like, she spends everything she has at the moment, and she doesn't seem to have any fallback, and she still hasn't paid her taxes. Obviously, we don't know what a tax bill is, but we could guess pretty high. But I wouldn't be surprised with what we've seen of her money recently if she actually didn't have the money to just pull out and pay that right now, because she's made repeated references to being a little more financially unstable at the moment, and the reason appears to be Nada. She did talk, speaking of the healthcare, she did talk a little bit about her health. She finally went and got her blood test. She had missed 3 appointments to get her blood taken for the STDs she might have. I'm guessing 1, because she's lazy, and 2, because she doesn't really want to know, but she went and did it finally. She also had this really bizarre conversation about her diabetes, and I'm not sure exactly what game she's playing, but I don't think she realizes there are no winners there. Yeah? So basically, she said, I guess I don't have diabetes because the doctor might have been looking at the wrong set of test results, might have been looking at her old A1C, and it's not my place to correct the doctor, but she doesn't want me on diabetes medication anymore because of it. So yay, I don't have diabetes anymore, is essentially where that thought process went. And she's infamous for not wanting to ask questions at the doctors, because she doesn't want to know any more than she needs to know, and then she doesn't even really want to know that. As long as she doesn't have to think about it, it's not true and it never happened, and it's not something she has to deal with. So she might still be a raging diabetic, pounding down 300 Lokma in a week, or she might be fine. But her doctor didn't want her back on Ozempic, I would actually not be surprised if the doctor was like, well, you're eating around the Ozempic anyway. Like, so what's the point of spending so much money on that when something else will work and you're not compliant? There are lots of reasons she might have been taken off Ozempic. But essentially, she said, oh, I test my blood sugars, which I can't believe she's doing that regularly or in the way she was supposed to. We've never seen her do it accurately or, after the correct amount of time ever on channel. But she says, oh, it's not been too bad. And that doesn't seem the same as being good and under control. And if it were, I think she would have told us. And if it's not, she has absolutely no reason to be honest about that. But the game that she seems to think she's winning, haha, the doctor said it's fine, so it's fine. The doctor said she's fine based on information that you know is probably incorrect, that you didn't correct her on by choice. The only prize you're looking at here is death. Death or losing a foot. Maybe be a bit less smug about it and consider where this path leads. Oh, we'll move on. We're getting there, you guys. So in terms of, there's a little bit about family that I wanted to talk about. We did briefly touch on this a little bit ago when she did her pumpkin patch visit. There was something going on Instagram where it appeared either her family were in the same place at the same time and they were doing like pictures together, her sister, her aunt, her mum, and Foodie was nowhere to be seen and she was hanging out with Nada, which didn't look too good. Or they both went to separate pumpkin patches so they weren't together to take photos, which means that she had chosen to go to do the same activity but with Nada elsewhere rather than hang out with her family, because I guess her family don't approve of Nada. I don't see how they could. Whichever way you slice that, it didn't look very good. Now we've got the aunt sleeping downstairs. It seemed a little bit odd that she'd be staying on the couch. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I could be wrong. Yeah, I might have missed something. But why would you make your aunt sleep on the couch when we know that she's stayed with family members before? She could have a bed for the night with family members and Foodie could go pick her up in the car. If it's a little bit of a long way, Foodie likes to drive, it doesn't matter. And then the aunt can be comfortable. That doesn't seem to be what they did, which to me, based on maybe not enough information, gives two possibilities. I put up 3 fingers then, I didn't need to. I is smart. Either number one, the family said, you can hang out with the aunt, but we don't want to see you. So Foodie asked the aunt to come and stay with her so that aunt would be there and they could spend time and Chantal could remain separate from family because the family didn't want to see her. Or Chantal didn't want to see the family because they would have some pretty unfortunate questions that she didn't want to answer. So she asked the aunt to come and stay with her on the couch for the night so they could spend the day together. And then I'm guessing she'll drop the aunt off, but she won't go in. I'm guessing. Neither of them sound pretty good, but I think either family has had enough or Foodie is on full avoidance mode. However, Foodie does bring up a couple of times and she says, oh, I'm not doing this with my family, which immediately made me suspicious that she's doing it with her family, because why else would you bring it up? This is how her lies go. She was saying how it's totally okay to cut toxic members of your family out. Now, as a general statement, that is true. The fact that you're related to somebody by blood and you happen to have been in close proximity with them for your lifetime was not your choice. Sometimes toxic people are toxic people and you need to get away. And the fact that their family makes it harder but doesn't make it any less important. There are lines you have to draw with all people and sometimes your family is among them. But I find it very interesting as she sits here in her abusive relationship, seemingly separated from her family, that she's talking about toxic family members. What toxic is in, we don't fully support your terrible, frankly terrible decision making, which seems to be sending you broke, sores on your mouth, burns on your lip, taking drugs. We don't support that. So they're toxic. That seems to be the thought process there. And there is something going on. There's something going on there. I think Foodie is closer to losing her family than she realizes. And the fact that Aunt is there and it's forcing more family closeness, I think is maybe lulling her into a bit of a false sense of security. But family will outlast Nada. And for all the problems her family have, I don't think Foodie at all appreciates that fact. I think she thinks eventually Nada will come to his senses, realize she's the one, and he'll love her enough to change. I think she's at that level of stereotype right now. And I think if there was a possibility, even just in her own head, of that happening, she would drop her family in a heartbeat. And I think that's where we're going. And if they have a problem with that, if they question her, if they ask her anything, then, well, they are toxic and they should be cut out. I don't know. We'll see. Speaking of toxic, let's finish off with her community. She wasn't too happy with her community members. There was quite a funny moment where she was talking about Nick Ocado, who I don't actually watch, but my general consensus is, wow, he a mess. And she said, who's worse, me or Nick Ocado? And one of her, I can't remember who it was, but one of her chat were like, Nick Ocado's an act, this is your reality. And she was like, oh, touche. Now, I would argue that yes, a lot of what Nick Ocado does seems very calculated and very much an act, but the physical repercussions of it are something he does have to live with, so it's fast becoming his reality. At what point do you stop pretending to be that kind of person and just become that kind of person when it's a 24/7 kind of gig? At what point does art imitate life and life imitate art? But it was a funny moment. She was getting very angry at the chat, just talking a lot about, hey, I don't bring him up, you bring him up. And someone was like, you're getting angry at the wrong person. She's like, I'm getting angry at the right people. What, the people who are paying extra to be on your channel? Those people? And she's like, if you think $4.99 are going to protect you, yeah, it's not going to protect you. Please stop giving her your $4.99 a month. She'll just get angry and block you. And frankly, why are you supporting this? Why are you paying extra money to be spoken to in this way? Don't do that. Nobody deserves that. You don't deserve to be spoken to this way for free. You certainly don't deserve to be spoken to and pay for the privilege. But she's generally angry. She says, you bring him up and therefore, what, this is it, I guess. And I'm like, well, do you remember, I think it was my last stream when I was like, well, this is the first, second, third and fourth time she's brought him up unnecessarily. You can choose to block the people who mention him. You can choose to not read out the questions. You can choose to not engage with the point. She didn't choose to do any of that. She chose to talk about him. So that's a choice that you made. You control what comes out of your mouth, or at least you're supposed to be able to. I recognize that she doesn't. But yeah, there was quite a lot. And then she got either a call or a text and she was like, I will call who the fuck I want to someone who was like, I don't know what exactly the chat said, but it was either like, oh, don't take his call, or maybe it was something to do with don't take his call during the live stream because it's fucking rude. I don't know. But she didn't appreciate it, and she's not talking to her community very well, and she's very much blaming them hardcore for all the problems that come up on her channel, which doesn't surprise me at all and probably shouldn't surprise you. All right, it's entirely possible that I missed a few things. Apologies, everybody. If I did, if you are looking for the clips themselves, Just Saying puts a clip show together. She did say that she's got it with the chat, but she had to go to work, so it's not up yet. But she's usually quite good for just cutting these big long lives down. I'd recommend her channel. If you're looking for other perspectives that are maybe a bit more concise, Smokey Steve and Mark do a recap once a week on the goings on of Chantal, and they're very knowledgeable in their particular fields. I really recommend them. If you've got a bit more time and you want to see the whole thing, or you want to just listen to it while you're doing other things, Pulpy also tends to go through all of it, which is very long but also quite informative. So if you'd like any other perspectives, those are available. There are a host of reactors out there. You can go and choose any of the ones you would like, because people get to talk about it and you get to choose the people that appeal to you. Congratulations, there is a plethora of people you could be listening to. Enjoy them. So speaking of, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here, and I will see you next time. Thank you.